Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host as always, Steve Hall, and today I talk to Antonella Schwarz. She is an assistant professor of exercise sciences at Barry University. She is specializing in resistance training, sports nutrition, and human performance. She is a former bodybuilder, and her research focuses on how training recovery and body composition strategies can optimize athletic performance and preserve muscle and strength across the lifespan. So a really, really great chat with Antonella. We talk about her bodybuilding history, background, how that's led to where she is now, and actually the research that she's been doing. Talk a bit about her 2-week trip to Japan. We talk about muscle growth. What are some more real-world friendly and feasible approaches to objectively tracking muscle growth, and she's going to give us some research that we can use and some equations we can potentially use at home. We talk about recovery, rehab, and why we shouldn't just cease training. She talks about some passive recovery modalities and what the utility is of cupping, scraping, icing, and then we talk about BMI, whether or not that is a useful tool for assessing longevity. Maybe we should be looking at other things, and then importantly we discuss her dissertation, because there was no literature, or there is no literature published as yet on Myoreps, and many of you will be aware of Myoreps, where you do a kind of activation set and then you take short rest periods to keep reps effective because they're close to failure. And she realized there's no actual published literature comparing this to a straight set protocol, and so trying to look at these two side by side, volume equated. Are they equivalent, or is one better than the other? What outcomes did she find? We share those today. So guys, lots that was covered in this episode, a lot for you guys to enjoy. As ever, if you do enjoy these, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Without your subscriptions, we can't continue to bring on amazing guests, and you might miss out on some of these amazing guests and topics that we cover. And as well, make sure to give us a thumbs up, comment on YouTube, give us a nice rating review if you're on Spotify or Apple or whatever podcast provider you're on. It's really, really appreciated. And take a screenshot. Make sure to share and tag myself and Antonella over on Instagram. I have her Instagram handle in the description here today. But without further ado, let's get into today's show. Antonella, I'm going to quote you here. I'm going to put you right in the deep end. Something you said is you used to care how muscles looked on you. Now you care about how muscles can be used for you. I'd love to hear what that quote means to you.
Yeah, I actually love that you started off with that, because I'm proud that that's what people have taken from some of my conversations. And basically where that flip happened was, for many years, I was kind of stuck in the bodybuilding sphere, and that's all I knew. And that was really the beginning of, I think, my love and passion for human performance before I even knew it. And bodybuilding was kind of like my experimental outlet for what kind of limits can I push, and what can that look like, and what am I capable of, and how does that kind of spill over into the other sectors of my life. And I think once I started to see the spillover in whoa, I'm really strong and I feel like I can do anything. And I just competed this many times. I can really do anything I set my mind to. And then just learning about the physiology of skeletal muscle, kind of its implications on longevity, mortality. I mean, you name it. That's when I really was like, whoa, wait a second. Not only do muscles look great, but they are great, and they can really extend your lifespan and and improve the quality of your life. And I was like, wow, this is a double whammy. And I think that's when I really committed myself to okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I loved the lifting and competing portion when I did that, but now I love the idea of how far can my muscles take me within the quality of my life, and also just in performance. And so that's kind of how that was born.
Super cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, am I right in saying you last competed in 2016? Is it that long
Yeah.
ago now? It was almost
Yeah,
10
that long
years.
ago. I know. It was a long time ago at it was Teen Collegiate Masters Nationals in Pittsburgh, 2016, I think was my last competition.
And you were good, right? Did you
Yeah,
win?
I
I'm
won
pretty sure
that.
you won
Yeah.
your class. I've seen some photos, you had a
Yeah.
legit physique.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I won that. And actually only, I think, the Masters winners at that competition won their pro card, but then Teen Collegiate didn't win pro cards because it was kind of a smaller sector. But I was like, oh, I feel like I should have gotten something there. But it was a good It was a good way to end it all. I don't think I knew I was gonna be done then, but I'm happy that that's kinda how it ended. So yeah, it's a long time
I know
ago.
you said, I don't want to like dive too deeply into it. Maybe we can talk about some of
Mm.
your current work, but I think you said you didn't feel like you really fit into bodybuilding. Like it just wasn't. I'd love to hear
Yeah.
what you meant by that.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm very, very goal driven, and it's I think the best and worst quality of mine. Like, I hyper fixate on things, and it's good because I can get things done, and if like, tell myself I'm gonna do something and compete bodybuilding, once I start, I'm not stopping, and I'm not doing it half-ass, and it's gonna happen well. So that's the plus side of it, but the negative side is that I get so involved and it, like, almost becomes my entire personality for that portion of my life. So it's kind of this, like, double-edged sword, which I have come to appreciate, and I welcome it as a positive thing, but I think in the world of bodybuilding and everybody, I mean, I would say most people in bodybuilding are like that, like hyper fixated on, the sport
100%.
itself. And you have to be because it's one of those things you can't be like half in, half out. You've got to be all in to be successful. So I think that is what got me there. But I was more so obsessed with like human performance and like limitations and the mental side of it all too, and less obsessed with the aesthetics, and I think that's where I started to see the disconnect is, okay, the better I got, the more it became about aesthetics and everybody around me, and then I just, like, developed disordered eating patterns and just I was starting to realize, like, okay, what brought me to this was not really anything about what I looked like, it was more so, like, I'm up for the challenge, but it started to turn into, like, an unhealthy thing for me personally, and I think that's when I realized, like, okay, it's time to step away and I can tap into my human performance potential in other sectors, like in just strength training, in running, and whatever it might be. So that's where I kind of felt like I didn't quite fit in towards the end there, where I was like, I don't know if I want to be so obsessed with how I look because it's not good for me. Like I did it, at least at that point in time, I was really young too. So it could be
Yeah.
different now. But at that point in time, I just was like, this is not healthy, like for myself. And I can't keep doing it. So that's where that kind of happened.
I can relate hard. I'm sure a lot of the listeners can relate to that as well. Probably
Yeah.
people who went through a similar journey. Maybe they kind of were doing bodybuilding and then came out of it, or people currently doing it. I certainly can say more time has helped with that. I
Yeah.
think the people that do it a long time are very good at transitioning between like, okay, physique is the most important thing whilst I'm competing,
Mhm.
but off season, less about the look and more about performance because that's going to drive
Totally.
the physique in future. But it's totally a hard balance to get to, and
It's
like it's
hard.
notorious for driving. I certainly have eating disordered eating behaviors when I'm down in
Yeah.
the depths of prep, and again trying to recover that and get to a sense of normality.
Yeah.
And if you realize, and a lot of people do when they step on stage, they go through that process. It's not for them. Like you get to do the kind of the best side of bodybuilding, and you actually just get to do the building
Yeah, yeah.
versus the like taking the body fat off so often. But yeah, that's in 2016. How young were you at that time? Because you said you
Oh
were
my
young,
gosh. I'm 28 right now, and if I
right?
mean, I
Really
was
young.
like 19, 20, yeah, I was really young. I have just always been really, really competitive in everything I do, and I was a competitive runner growing up, like USA track and did a lot of, like, awesome, cool traveling and competitions, like Junior Olympics, like all that kind of fun stuff when I was, like, 13, and then in high school, we won state championships, and once that kind of ended, I had an identity crisis, and I just wasn't fast enough to run at a big school, but I was determined to go to a big school, so I was like, "Okay, I'm just not gonna run competitively anymore. I'll have to find another outlet," and that's when I found bodybuilding kind of by accident because I started lifting. One of my best guy friends was teaching me how to lift, just basic resistance training, and the gym that was closest to my house and his house was a bodybuilding, like, dominant gym, and so everybody was a bodybuilder, and that's really where that was born is people were just like, "Hey, you have, like, you have really good potential, like, good genetics, you should consider, bodybuilding," and at that point in time, I had little to no education about health and wellness and fitness at all. I mean, I was a late high schooler. And I just remember my initial thought was, "I could never eat like that. Like, I'm okay. I'm good." And that quickly changed. So,
Can I ask, was there anything that comes to mind when I say, was there anything weird in prep that
yeah.
you ate?
The idea of eating unsalted chicken and unsalted, unseasoned asparagus, I couldn't eat asparagus for so long afterwards. I was scarred, and I ate a lot of ground chicken because it was easy to travel. So I would make like 4 ounce ground chicken patties. And I just remember traveling. I had gone on a trip to Pittsburgh, not a competition trip. It was just like a random trip with some friends. It was like a family friend and their kids. And we went to a Pittsburgh Pirates game, and I was on prep and I couldn't like eat normal. So I packed my food, my 6-pack abs bag, all my meals, and I snuck in chicken patties into the game. And I just remember like eating the chicken patty with ketchup. And I just can't eat ground chicken to this day.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
The things bodybuilders would do. I actually have
I
a similar story. I
know.
was flying to WNBF Worlds and
Mhm.
I'd frozen my egg whites thinking that's smart because they're defrost by the time I need to eat them. And this has been like the food I've been eating. And in peak week, it's important to
Yeah.
keep food the same. They were still frozen. And I ate frozen egg whites just on the flight. It was a long
That's
time I
crazy.
wasn't wanting to eat egg whites. So
Yeah,
yeah,
me
it's
too. I to this day can't eat just plain egg whites. Like I can eat mostly egg whites, like one whole egg, or I can eat like egg white bites from Starbucks that have like some of the vegetables and the cheese. I can do that, but plain egg whites, I'm scarred. I can't do it. I used to actually in college, I would make the egg whites like a fried egg without the yolk, and then I would put that sugar-free syrup and put it in a Ziploc bag and walk to class just like with a
oh
fork, eating my egg whites and sugar-free syrup. I was like, oh
yeah.
my God, what a time that was. So
I first
funny.
competed in 2014, and I think that was the time like flexible dieting was starting to become more of a thing, and if it fits your macros was big,
Yep.
and Walden Farms was big at that point. And I
Yeah, the
remember
Walden
importing.
Farms.
We didn't have Walden Farms here in the UK, so I imported
Oh,
syrup, and so I
stop.
was like doing this chocolate syrup over things, and I remember giving it to my girlfriend and being like, "This is delicious,"
Yeah,
and she, at the time, she just kind of was like, "Yeah, yeah, it's great," and
of
then afterwards,
course.
she was like, "By the way." Please don't make those for me again. Don't give me that syrup.
The the adjustment and the self-talk and the lying, the deception in your own head that happens is wild. Like, I would eat things, I'm like, "This is so good." And then you're off prep and you eat it, you're like, "What was I thinking?" Or, like, nowadays, I'm like, Walden Farms syrup, I just like,
Yeah,
I can't believe I thought that was good or, like, I mean, just the craziest things you'd make, and you're like, "Oh, so delicious." But
it's
it's
funny.
funny.
If I ever see someone reviewing anything and they're in
Mhm.
like they're deep into a diet or in comp prep and they're reviewing a food, I'm just like, I don't trust anything you say. Carrots taste
No.
sweet to you and
Yeah.
amazing. Like I can't trust what
That's
you're saying.
Yep,
But
you're so
I
right.
love that you kind of one of the biggest lessons for you was that if you put your mind to something, you can do it. And
Yep,
that's a big reason I first competed in bodybuilding as well. It's like, I just want to see if I can go through this and recover and be healthy and good and
yep,
see that my body's resilient. And then once I kind of did that, I was sold. I was like, wow, like the human body is amazing. To your
yep,
point, like it's so plastic if you give it the right inputs and you kind of do the right outputs, as it were, in terms of exercise, you
mhm,
can transform it aesthetically, but also
right.
health wise as well. Something just a complete tangent, just because I noticed when I was doing some research on you, you went to Japan recently, and it's a place
Yeah,
I love anime. I'm super
yeah,
interested in Japan, their culture, everything like that.
mhm.
I just wanted to know, like, yeah, 2 weeks out there, how was it? What were
Oh, it
your
was
kind of
so
biggest
awesome.
memories?
It was so awesome. Biggest memories were I'm obsessed with I love eggs, and the egg sandos, like the little egg sandwiches, oh my gosh, just unreal. It's so convenient. You can grab them at the 7-Eleven, and I also loved how convenient, like, fruit was there, just, like, fresh fruit at 7-Eleven, like, bags of just, like, pineapple, and they give you a fork, you could walk around and eat it, or the fruit smoothies that you've seen probably go viral, like, at the 7-Elevens, those are I was really wondering, I'm like, I bet they're, like they've got sugar or random stuff. It's seriously just frozen fruit and water, and I was like, "That's so amazing that you can just get that on a hot day, a quick little snack." It's a couple of dollars, like, USD. Um, so I think that was my favorite, just, like, the convenience of quick, healthy food because I think about I go on a road trip here, and if I want something like nourishing, it's longer stop. You get off the highway, you have to go to like a restaurant, a Chipotle or something. But there you could just get anything pretty conveniently. And I think that was a major highlight for me. I was like, this is awesome. The food is so good. And I also love sushi. So just tuna everywhere. I loved that. And I love steaks, of course. Big steak uh, place there in Tokyo and Japan, honestly, all over Japan. So that was fun. But I, I also loved how active we were even on vacation, because you are walking around all day, and public transit is so easy to not easy to navigate, but it's everywhere and it's accessible. Um, so I thought it was awesome. Like, it just seemed like you didn't have to build in your exercise because it was just part of your daily life. So that was awesome. I really loved Japan because of that.
Did you notice a difference? I've never been to Japan, so I can't imagine it, and I don't know statistics off the top of my head. But
Yeah.
from my lack of awareness, they seem to be relatively lean and not that many
Yeah,
people obese. Did you kind of
totally.
notice that when you're out and about?
Oh, yeah, I was like, "I'm the biggest person here." I'm not even big. I'm just, like, kinda muscular and, like, not super tiny and fragile, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, everybody here is so small, I feel like a giant," and we were shopping one day, and I was like, "I have to wear, like, a large or an extra large, like, this clothes is so small, and I'm not even big." I'm, like, 5'5", 145 pounds, but it was fascinating, like, just the cultural differences, and I think it's a testament to just, like, the way that the cities, like, the country is built. I mean, public transit, people are walking and biking, it's safe in those regards. There's just, like, healthy, accessible food everywhere. I think it's, yeah, a testament to, like, a walkable,
Yeah.
safe city with good food that is easily accessible and not overpriced. So everybody seemed to kind of that was just normal for them. I mean, here people I mean, it's on some days, it's hard for me to even get, 7,000 steps because, I mean, if I go to the grocery store, I likely have to drive. If I go to work, I have to drive, and then I sit at a desk, and if I don't build it in, then there are days where it's hard to move enough. And there, that's not a problem because you walk to work or you walk to the store and whatnot. So I think it's mostly a testament to just like their environment. So
Yeah,
that was
that
cool.
makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, I know when I work with a number of my US clients, unless they live in like New York or somewhere, it's
Mhm.
challenging for them to get their steps in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is it hard? Like I just accumulate them through the day, just living life. And
Right.
I'm in London. And I don't know if you've been to London, but some
I
of the things you
haven't.
talked about that you'd probably really like it. There's a lot of unhealthy food available and there's plenty of obese
Right.
people in the UK. But there's lots of like the sandwiches, like snack pots of fruit, things like that. If you want to eat healthy, in London, it's super easy and convenient. And
That's
if you
awesome.
walk around London, you get like 30,000 steps if you're just on your feet,
Yeah.
like discovering the city. So yeah, you should come visit it at some point. You probably very
Yeah.
different to Japan though,
Right. Right, right,
but
right, right, right.
some similarities.
No,
So to
that's
dive
awesome.
into some of your actual work,
Yeah.
because well, that's a big reason I have you on here today, and I know you've done a lot. Well, actually, scaling it back, so talking about bodybuilding actually,
Yeah.
and as you know, natural bodybuilding in particular, muscle growth is like watching paint dry,
Uh,
and we have only a few ways of trying to track muscle growth, and
yeah.
objective means are really challenging. And some of your work is looked into muscle mass estimation methods that have like
Mhm.
real world feasibility. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a bit about that, what you kind of found, and if you have any ones that you could recommend people use.
Yeah. So we use a skeletal muscle estimation equation by Dr. Hamesfield. Um, and we pretty much use, and we didn't have any great direct measures. Like we didn't have access to MRI, and I also didn't have access to ultrasound. So we were kind of just like, let's do something with the resources we have because a lot of people don't have access to MRI and ultrasound. So maybe this can be more so like real world applicability than like precision muscle measurement. Um, and what we found was that the skeletal muscle estimation equation by Dr. Hamsfield, I can send you the paper with the equations, and if you can link it to the show notes and whatnot. It was pretty awesome. It was pretty accurate, and not that we had direct measurements to compare it to. He did, and that's why he was able to publish it, because it was so spot on. But we didn't. But we put it up against like free fat mass estimation just from the bod pod, which again is not just skeletal muscle mass. So not the most ideal, but for our population, which were strength trained individuals or recreationally strength trained individuals, it seemed to work really well. There was a strong relationship. And I think that's just a testament to accessible measurement and having a simple equation that you know has been validated can really help you just get an idea, at least, or at least a baseline reference measurement of where you're at. And then you can adjust as you go. And I always say it's better to track something than nothing, so you have at least a reference point. So that was kind of what we were out to do. And it worked out for us. And the equation was awesome. The equations, there's multiple, were awesome. I'll send you the paper. But yeah, that's really it. And also had a strong relationship with their strength numbers, like with their 1RM squat, bench, deadlift, which was cool to see and makes sense, right? Like ideally, like if you have more muscle mass, then you not should be stronger, but you tend to be stronger. Um, and that was a relationship that we saw. Of course, not always linear or anything, but it was fun to see that, at least within this like trained population after they had been working on hypertrophy for 8 weeks, which again, not long enough, but it was good enough for the resources we had and a part of my dissertation.
Out of interest, this equation, use it with your own
Mhm.
clients?
I've never used it with my own clients, no,
Okay.
because you do need free fat mass for it, um,
Okay.
or fat-free mass. So just to so you would need some kind of maybe like BIA measurement access or bod pod or something that could at least give you that fat mass to free fat mass difference or ratio, which does make it a little tricky, but and waist circumference, which somebody could just measure, a client could just measure that on their own. Um, so there's that small limitation, but again, there's usually facilities, labs, even the doctor's office might have a BIA that you could get FFM measurement. But yeah, you do need that FFM measurement, I believe, if I'm thinking of the right equation. Height, age, weight, waist circumference, and then I think it was FFM. You know,
Okay.
now that I'm
That makes
thinking about
sense.
it, yeah, yeah, I'll send you
Yeah,
that
it's
paper.
yeah, I'll be interested to just like how can I practically use that with clients
Yeah,
to just get that extra layer of
yeah,
information, especially I work with people, basically bodybuilders, whether they're
yeah,
competitive or not. So they're just like the easiest, like you said, strength is a key correlate to
yeah,
muscle growth, but
right,
it's not always, certainly not one
yeah,
for one. And there's a
right.
lot of other things that go into muscle growth. And then like pictures are great, standardizing
Mhm.
those poses, lighting, everything like that,
Yep,
that has its own
it's tough.
limitations and everything. So
I
yeah,
know, I
it's
know.
definitely tough.
Bodybuilding clients have gotta be a tough crowd to work with. I don't work with any, like, actual bodybuilders, but and I've never helped someone prep for a show, but that's kudos to you. That's so tough. I can't even imagine, like, trying to standardize that and just, like, the psychological portion of it. That's hard for a coach, I feel like. You're juggling a lot of, like, people at their, like, most, like, fragile breaking points, hungry, tired, pissed. Oh, man.
Yeah,
That's
I
probably
hear
half
of
the job.
coaches who have, I don't know, almost the whole roster is like prepping
Oh
like
my gosh.
people for stage, and I'm like, oh, well, it's maybe 10 to 20% of my client roster, so it's only like
Yeah.
a handful of people, maybe 5 to 10
Yeah.
for a season. So I
Mhm.
don't have like 20 on a show
Yeah.
day. I can't even
Yeah.
imagine having to manage that many people would be
I
absolutely
can't
wild,
either.
like you said.
Yeah, I know. I remember always being like texting my coach, like, what can I eat this week? What's this? What's that? Like, help me, send me something. Cause you're just like going crazy and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
At least now the camera quality is so high. Like you can send me a video in
Yeah.
2K, like I can actually see what you look like. Whereas I
Right.
can't imagine how people did it in the past. You'd have to be at the show or be
Yeah.
with your clients locally a lot of the time. Whereas now, at
Yeah.
least, yeah, with that technology, we can get really good photos, which is great. But
Totally.
yeah, it's especially when you're dealing with the amount of muscle that you're trying to gain once you've been doing this a decade. It's such a small amount.
Yeah.
I sometimes, like, you don't actually know until you step on stage again and you're like, right, I'm similar
Yeah.
body weight, but do I look a bit leaner? Like, have I got an extra
Yeah.
striation here? My shape looks a bit more shapely. So
Yeah.
it's taken to the extreme. So yeah, I'll be
Totally.
interested to see that calculation, kind of put it into practice, see what it
Yeah, I
looks
can
like.
even send you my spreadsheet that I use because I plugged it into a spreadsheet to make life easy.
Nice,
So then I
easy.
could just plug in people's like age, waist circumference, this, that, and then it just would spit out the estimation. And it was pretty accurate. It was pretty like it seemed accurate. It wasn't spitting out like 100 kilos or anything crazy where you're like, are you sure about that? So I'll send that to you too, just because maybe you could use it with your clients.
Yeah, and I know Dr. Grant Tinsley, if you've heard of
Yeah, yeah,
him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm
he's
friends
been
with
on the
him.
podcast and he's doing a lot of like body composition measurement, and
Yeah.
he's been working on, I know, an app where essentially you like take a photo of someone and it gets the circumference measurements and everything like pretty
So
spot on.
cool.
So those sort of tools I think are going to just help you assess things a little bit more closely, where you're
Yeah,
kind of trusting eye or photos and just less tangible, objective data. The more you,
totally.
it sounds like you're a fairly data-driven person. Most people are who are on this
Yeah.
podcast, so
Yeah.
it's nice to have that versus just like, yeah, you look bigger, bro. Like it's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
going
no,
fine.
totally.
Trust the process.
100%, 100%. Oh my gosh. Oh, totally.
Some of your work also has been in the rehab world, so
Yeah.
you tend to shift focus away from what a lot of people will think about rehab as like passive modalities, whereas you look at more active strength-based recovery.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you can intelligently integrate kind of some of the strength work into early rehab.
Yeah. I always say, and this is not my personal mantra, I've heard this many times amongst like some of the best rehab specialists, but rehab is just training in the presence of an injury. So I don't know where this dichotomy was born of like rehab is completely different than training. But whenever that happened must have been the worst time in the world because that just doesn't make sense to me. And I mean, we know the principles of hypertrophy, right? I'm not saying it's simple because we don't know everything about hypertrophy. It's still in its infancy and whatnot, but we know the basic principles, like especially if you've competed, you know, sometimes the simplicity of growth and like how to make the body parts that you specifically want grow and how you target them and increasing your volume and manipulating rest, and there's a bunch of advanced training techniques. I don't know how or why that doesn't get applied in almost most or all rehab scenarios. Like if you tear your ACL and you are 5 months post-op, 6 months post-op, and there is significant atrophy, I mean, making that bigger is hypertrophy, and we know how to do that, and we do that in healthy populations. How does that not extend also to maybe a clinical population? Of course, they're not going to be able to push the same weight, but maybe that's when you use BFR, or maybe that's when you know, isolate and you get on a leg extension machine instead of, you know, single leg squats or something, right? So I just don't know why there's such a disconnect when the principles are the same. It's just like you are a trained clinician in maybe that specific clinical scenario. So then you have kind of the medical expertise to blend the two. But I don't really know where the silo happened of like rehab being, you know, bands and ankle weights. And if you're an athlete, how is that even enough stimulus to like initiate change and adaptation and tissue tolerance when if you were squatting 225 like it's your birthday, you know, a year ago, and all of a sudden you're 9 months post-op and your PT hasn't even put you under a barbell, like where is the stimulus? You've gone 9 months with nothing even remotely challenging. I mean, it just is mind-boggling to me, and I, as well as I know so many other awesome practitioners, are like on a mission to change that. Like there should not be a difference at all, really. I mean, obviously you're just auto-regulating and hey, you feel like crap today, or hey, you don't have enough range of motion, let's modify this. But it's the same as if you were just auto-regulating your own workouts and you didn't have an injury. You're just working around said injury, but trying to still get stronger and better. And so that's really my philosophy. And I'm going to die on the hill that every PT, AT needs to be maybe not certified in strength and conditioning, but have that background. Because if you're going to work, especially if you're going to work in sports, like if you're going to work as an athletic trainer or physio, or you're going to work in sports PT, I mean, you have to know how to design a workout. You have to know how to progress it. You have to know how to get creative and challenge people with different exercises, um, because you are essentially training people. They just happen to have a small limitation, and you just have to work around it. So, yeah, that's kind of my thing.
Yeah, I love that, especially in bodybuilding. Well,
Yeah,
the great thing with bodybuilding is it doesn't really matter what exercise you're doing. You just need to train a muscle and
yeah,
take it close to failure. Basically, is what we're
totally.
trying to do here. We're not power lifters or have like a certain
Yeah,
lift we must do, and so it's actually. And when you're training hard, as you all know, Antonella, injuries come up, and so you have
totally.
to find wise ways to work around them. Is there any common mistakes you see people make when they do try and integrate the two that you'd be like, whilst I do want you to strength train, don't do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely progressing too soon is a problem and doing too much too soon. And a lot of us who have trained and competed in whatever we have competed in know what we're capable of. And so we'll get hurt and we'll take a little bit of time off and then jump right back in, like just like we were 2 weeks ago. Right. And so progressing slowly is usually where I see a lot of the disconnect happen is like you either are full blow or zero on full rest. And like, okay, if you're going to take, X amount of time to rest, recover, stay off of the leg, stay off of the arm, you have to almost give yourself equal amount of time to progress back to like where you were before. So like if you're taking 5 days off or whatever the case might be, which I never recommend really taking a ton of time off, but if let's say you were doing that, you would want to give yourself a week to like progress back to where you were before. So I see that a lot. I work with our athletes at our university, and I hear that too often. Like, oh, the year ended and I had an elbow injury. So I just like rested it all summer and I'm back on campus and my elbow hurts again. I'm like, oh, so you just rested the entire summer and then just jumped in like normal because you just went 100. So you went from 0% for 3 months to 100% in one day and you're surprised your elbow still hurts. Interesting. But that's also just a testament to the what we used to think worked, and we used to think rest was what we all needed if we got hurt. Like, you need to rest and not do anything, and then you'll be fine. But resting is putting, like, a blindfold on. You're just, like, doing nothing, and it's lying to you because you're like, "Oh, I feel good," but it's you feel good because 'cause you're not doing anything, and then you jump into something and you're like, "Wait, it feels the same again," or "It feels worse." Um, so yeah, that's the biggest, I think, hurdle I see is like, you gotta progress yourself back in. You can't just jump in, especially as you get older too. Like, it takes a lot longer for us older people to like jump back in.
I don't think you
And
can
I'm
call
not even
yourself
old.
older just yet.
I
Yeah,
know,
you're
but
not
it's
in your
not the
30s yet.
same. I know, but it's not the same. Like 5
You're trying
years
to
ago,
relate. I know.
I know. And 5 years ago, I could, like, be hurt or, like, my hamstring would hurt and, like, I'd take a day and then the next day it'd feel fine. But now I'm like, "Oh god, this is, like, gonna take me a couple days to get back from." It's not
It's
the
hard
same
to accept.
anymore.
Yeah, I try and
I
treat myself like
know.
I'm still 18. I'm made of like
Same.
just plastic and magic,
Yep.
so
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
not quite the way. But yeah, seeing people go gung ho is
Yeah.
completely something I often see where they're just like, "Oh, it hurts.
Yep.
I'm take time off," and then they're like, "Right, I've had time off now. I need to like go hard," and it's like they're
Yep.
back to square one. It's
Yep.
similar to any kind of healthy behavior in life. Like you're not like I don't really like the idea of being on or off a diet. It's like you're just on like a lifestyle diet for most people, like live a healthy lifestyle, live a healthy diet. And then it's just whether or not you have more or less to
Yep.
manipulate body composition if that's the goal. But a lot of people are just like, hey, I'm kind of on holiday, I'm off diet, I'm then off diet, not thinking about it. It's like, oh no, I'm on diet. And they go through this
Yeah.
like cookie cutter, like balls to the wall diet and they burn themselves out and they're back to square one. So
Yeah.
it's these kind of, like you said, auto-regulating and kind of graduating
Yep.
into things slowly. And I guess you'd also say, at least this is what I tend to think is, it's similar to the saying I always come back to, which is from Alberto Nunez. He talks about like one rep can't make you, but it can break you. And I think about
Totally.
this with lots of things where the risk versus reward, like
Yep.
go slower versus faster if you're thinking one versus the other.
100%.
What do you think
I
of?
agree.
So some people will be aware of some of these kind of more, I guess they're somewhat modern day, like new modalities to try and help with recovery, like cupping, scraping, icing. What's your
Yeah.
general kind of feeling behind some of those?
My general feeling is that those things don't move the needle in like concrete terms. They might move it psychologically, placebo effect, or just the feeling of buying into like your own healthcare. You're like, oh, I'm like, some autonomy is always nice. And like, this feels good. I'm choosing to do this. I'm spending time doing this mentally. And maybe in the moment, it offers some kind of momentary relief. Like, you get a massage and you feel like $1,000,000, but then the next day you probably feel the same again, like you did, 2 days ago. So it's more so that momentary relief. But those things, if you really think about it, what makes you recover is adaptation and like tissue tolerance and changes, right? Like, you tear up your tissue, your muscles, and then you rest and recover and you eat, your protein, and you eat well-rounded diet and you sleep well, good sleep hygiene, and everything kind of grows back bigger, better, stronger. And you cannot physically get that with cupping and scraping and all that stuff. Like, they cannot actually change the tissue. And so therefore they're not actually aiding in your recovery. It just feels good. And not that that's a bad thing, because that can be used in conjunction with the real stuff that actually moves the needle. And sometimes I even tell people and my students all the time, like, that is a great window of opportunity. Like, if you want to be a physical therapist, a PT, an AT, whatever kind of like sports med person you want to be, those things they can provide you this window of opportunity for like buy-in and time to even like talk to your person and like, hey, I'm taking care of you. I'm giving you a little of what you want, but I'm also not fooling you. And I'm going to make sure you know that is not going to move the needle, but it might help prepare you physically, and it might bring some like tension relief to be able to do the exercise I want you to do, or to be able to push the intensity I want you to push in our session after this or before this or whatever. So that's where I think those things have a purpose. But feelings aside, objectively, the research just doesn't support these modalities. Like, all of the research is either inconclusive or basically like, oh, psychologically it was beneficial. Or there's a lot of stuff done where they compare the modalities to exercise interventions, and the exercise interventions outperform the modalities. And so why are you going to do, especially in the clinical setting when people are paying to come see you and paying, or insurance is paying, you know, for them to come see you, why are you going to do the things that are not really supported by the evidence when you have limited time and this person's paying you dollars, when you can actually be creating tissue change? And that's what they need, right? So I am not a fan of the modalities. I think they have a place, but it has to be in conjunction with exercise intervention. And ultimately, when it comes to recovery, what's going to move the needle, which I know you know this, is good sleep and good protein, good nutrition, and low stress, which
Yeah.
easier said than done. But yeah, that's kind of my thing, my
Super well
philosophy.
said. It makes me think of back to when I was a one-on-one personal trainer, and I know like what's going to move the needle in terms of them changing their body composition is, okay, big compound lifts, progressively overloading those, do your squats, your deadlifts, your presses, your pulls. But what they want is like to feel like they've worked and they're out of breath and it's hard. So I'd kind of set aside 10 minutes at the end of a session, just be like, right, now we're going to do some like circuit, like
Totally.
arm work, delt work. Like it's not going to take away from what we're trying to achieve, but it's not the prime mover, but it gets buy-in and
Yeah.
they enjoy it. So I totally see that with some of
Yeah.
these other kind of passive modalities. And yeah, but especially massage, that's one I think probably quite big in the bodybuilding space. Is like people swear by sports massage and everything.
Yeah.
And when people ask me and they're like, hey, Steve, do you get like a sports massage like every week? You train really hard. I'm like, I don't think I've ever had one, maybe once. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not convinced they're doing too much. But it's like you said, the placebo and the
Yeah.
psychological positive impact
Yeah.
is real. So I think similarly to you, it's a case of they can be a great adjunct potentially, but
Hmm.
certainly shouldn't be the prime focus for people.
Yeah. And too many times people spend more time doing these things and more money than they should doing these things, which takes away from like the time they could be fully resting, like at their house, on their couch, in their bed, sleeping, resting, actually recovering, or like money spent, elsewhere, maybe on their meal prepping, because maybe they're sucking at doing it at home. Maybe they should get it from somewhere else and they could use the money that they're spending on, their crazy modalities for that. And so I think it's just auditing like your priorities and what you have resources to do. I mean, if you've got all the time and money in the world, hell yeah, go do all the recovery stuff because you're still going to have money to get all your food and pay your coach and do your prep and sleep. And if whatever, that's fine. But again, if it's taking away from the stuff that does move the needle, then you definitely have a problem there. So again, yeah, just super personalized and individualized.
Yeah, brilliant. And to circle back, something you mentioned earlier was kind of talking about longevity, and that's now
Hmm.
more of your focus versus what bodybuilding was. Although, as we're going to come to, they're probably quite tied in some aspects.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to focus on BMI. That's become something that a lot of healthcare practitioners use. How do you feel about the utility of BMI as it kind of pertains to longevity? Do you think that should
Yeah.
be the focus?
I always think that the focus should be on more like FFMI, that free fat mass index, or looking at skeletal muscle-centric measurements, because I personally believe, and we've seen in some of the literature too, that how much muscle mass you have, how healthy you are, even things like your VO2 max, right? Their correlation, their relationship to like longer lifespan, all cause like reduction in all cause mortality, all that fun stuff. So I think that kind of taking a more muscle centric perspective is a better way to audit someone's health than taking the like a fat centric perspective. Because okay, you have low body fat, your doctor's like, great, good job, you're good, you're healthy, but are you? I mean, you might be 15% body fat as a woman, and that would be considered low, but if you have no muscle mass, what happens when, you're 60 and you have sarcopenia and you have osteoporosis? Like, are you really healthy? Like, is that what you would consider healthy, or would you prefer to maybe be 20% body fat, but have, a decent amount of skeletal muscle? So I don't love focusing on BMI, fat mass, or anything like that. However, I think BMI has a place, and I think BMI in conjunction with waist circumference is a good way to kind of audit the health of somebody. And that could be a good way to implement that without just fully nixing BMI, but also not just using BMI. So a BMI plus waist circumference tells you a better story, right? Like people who are jacked, they're going to have a high BMI, but a smaller waist circumference. So then you can be like, okay, one, this BMI might not be accurate because they're definitely not obese. And so maybe then that could lead you to do further testing. Like, let's get your body comp. And then you could be like, okay, great, good metric to assess your health. But if you have a high BMI and a high waist circumference, then probably don't need to do further testing, probably can confidently say, maybe let's change some of these lifestyle habits. And so I think BMI alone is a disservice, but pairing it with waist circumference would be a better way to use it. And if possible, looking at body comp instead of BMI, that would be like gold standard, I think, to really analyze like, okay, how much muscle mass do you have? Do you have enough? Do you not? And oftentimes I feel like people respond better when you're giving them something to enrich their life. Like, hey, let's add this to your life. Like, let's add resistance training. Let's add, instead of take, stop eating so much, stop doing this, more exercise. Like, it just is not conducive to good adherence. And I feel like we forget that sometimes with humans. Like, we know what works, but if it was that easy, then everybody would be fit and healthy and fine. But it's so much, it's like it's just more to it, and it's way more complicated, and behavior change and all that fun stuff. So I think taking that like enrichment perspective and like, hey, I'm going to add this to your life. It's going to be great. Like, let's nourish better. Let's add more protein to your diet. I think that is a little more empowering and shifts the needle or moves the needle more than you have too much body fat. You have to lose, eat less, eat less. I mean, we know that for a majority of the population just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah, I think BMI, especially for like you when you're talking to bodybuilders, like it's a very tricky
Yeah.
metric to be like, hey, you can't judge my health off BMI. I remember I got some blood work done like I don't know, 4 months post show, and part of it was also I gave them my body weight and height so they could get my BMI, and they were like, one of the bits of feedback was like, oh, you could lose some weight to be a bit healthier potentially, and I was like, I'm like literally just
Yeah.
maybe 10% if that body fat.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I should be losing weight. It's going to make
Yeah.
me less healthy for sure. So that waist circumference is a great one. I forget, is it like apple and pear shape are like the two, and then
It's
one of
something,
them is
yeah.
I think apple's the more harmful one because it's more weight around. Oh no, maybe pear
Yeah,
is because you hold it around the trunk, and that's a particularly
right.
kind of
Like
poor place
the
to hold body
visceral
fat.
fat. Yeah, like
Yeah,
around your organs and stuff. But also just like when you do tend to gain a lot of weight, it technically, or not technically, it oftentimes goes into that trunk area, especially for males. So we know that. And there are male norms and female norms. So if you were at the doctor's office and just like the BMI has the norms and the, you know, healthy, overweight, obese, there is that exists, like a chart like that exists for waist circumference. So even, I mean, it would be a simple, non-invasive measurement that you can do, and kind of look at where do they fall on the norms and does it add up? Like, okay, obese and large waist circumference. Okay, we can confidently say, let's modify a lifestyle. And if not, then you can be like, maybe we should check composition and then give recommendations. Just like you, I mean, telling you to lose weight, that'd be crazy. So,
for
yeah.
sure. That makes so much sense. I really love also the idea of when a lot of people think about fat loss, they think about dieting, they think about deprivation, taking away. Whereas if you can flip it on its head and be like, hey, look, like almost approaching it from often I approach it from like a calories, a macros, food
Yeah.
composition sort of kind of bottom up approach. But if you approach it from start, especially for someone they don't have the time to track and worry about these things, if you
Right.
just get their food composition and you say like add this, it's like if you
Yeah.
suddenly jack up their protein double, triple, whatever,
Yeah.
you get them having again double, triple fruit and veg. Suddenly
Yeah.
their satiety is so much through the roof. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't eat like I used to, Steve.
Yeah,
I'm
people
struggling,
are
Antonella.
just
I can't get all the food in.
yeah, and people are just happier when they're not starving, and, like, when they're happier when they're not starving, and they're happier when they're not having to just, like, deprive themselves of XYZ, and quality of life decreases because then they can't go out to eat or they feel like they can't, and that's when those disordered eating patterns, and so, yeah, I'm a big fan of just, like, how can I add something to your life to make you happier and get you to adhere to this, and then like, that's when the education component kinda comes in, and then people can start making their own decisions like, "Oh, I don't have to starve myself to lose weight. I can just kind of alter this and that and maybe increase my activity levels." And then it doesn't feel like a chore because now they are, like, making some of these decisions on their own, and they understand, and they enjoy the process versus, like, somebody who has no idea, and you're just like, "Eat less of this, don't eat much this, exercise this," and they're just like, "Sure," and then they're miserable. And then, it's kind of like the yo-yo dieting kind of, wave that they ride. So, yeah.
Especially if you get them introduced to what you mentioned there, like the protein, the plants, and then
Yeah.
also resistance training, suddenly months down the line, they're going to look at themselves, they won't recognize the
Yeah.
body composition they're now holding, and they don't have to put themselves into a crash diet for that sort of thing to happen either.
Yep.
And they can fuel their training, feel great. So
Yep.
only wins there. So
Yeah.
Antonella, I probably would be remiss if I didn't touch on this, which was your dissertation,
Yeah.
because it was Myoreps. I've
Yeah.
had, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, and I apologize because I'm pretty sure he's told me how to pronounce it, but Borge Fagerli,
Yeah.
that's how my British brain says it. And yeah, it's not correct, but he came up with Myoreps.
Yeah.
But you actually did your dissertation on this. So I'd love for you to kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. So I, wanted to look at because there's a lot of claims like, "Oh, my rep's superior because of, effective reps," all these theories and stuff that just really don't quite stand the test of time. And so my advisor and I came up with how can we test Myoreps in comparison to just traditional training, your 3 by 10, 1, 2, 3 minutes rest, compound lifts, all that fun stuff. How can we test Myoreps against that to see if there are differences in, outcomes and what those differences might be, if any. And basically we had two groups of guys train for 8 weeks, and one set of guys got just your traditional training, volume and intensity equated, and then the other set of guys got the Myoreps training, volume, intensity equated. So we could kind of track everything and make it as standardized as possible. We had to kind of mess with the Myoreps scheme a little, so it's not as like traditional as uh, I'm gonna butcher his name, Fagerli's method, but it's Myoreps nonetheless. Rest pause Myoreps structure. And basically, we found no differences. It was a very small group because I had a lot of dropouts. It was a really tightly controlled study. And doing training studies, kudos to the people that do them on the regular. It is incredibly difficult. I mean, it is just like babysitting. And of course, you get college age students, males, and it is just like babysitting. Like, hey, why haven't you input your protein? Hey, why haven't you sent me this video? Hey, I don't see your weights for today. Hey, like, and it's just,
It's free coaching, basically.
it's free coaching and it's so tedious because we controlled for protein intake and we did it where it was, they were training remotely, but we needed video proof of every single rep and set. So
Wow.
I watched hours and hours and days of just people training, counting reps, looking
This
at
does sound like
tempos, making
coaching.
sure it was brutal, but lots of dropouts. So I pretty much call this a pilot study because we just basically piloted this. I'd love to do this on a bigger, grander scale, but we didn't find any differences like physiologically or really in performance, I should say, either like in 1RM strength. But we did find a major difference in time, um, time, like training time. There was like, I think the Myra group was able to do it in like 2/3 of the time than the traditional group and complete the same amount of work at the same intensity. It was brutal because it's a lot of work, less rest. But at the end of the entire 8 weeks of training, there were no significant differences physiologically or really in performance. Of course, that doesn't mean that, they're the same or that they both elicit the same kind of changes, but there wasn't anything that was like, oh, this group got way stronger. This group was able to um, hypertrophy more. Also, we also didn't have direct measures of hypertrophy. Like I said, we use a lot of the equations, free fat mass estimations, and just free fat mass and like not estimating, but like what's the right word? Assuming that the changes in free fat mass were likely skeletal muscle since it was only 8 weeks. So again, not the most perfect study, basically like a good pilot of what could be done in the future. Um, and I think the final consensus was, hey, Myoreps is a good time efficient option that can elicit similar, at least in this small cohort, similar changes or similar gains compared to just traditional hypertrophy. So if you're pinched for time, if you are kind of in a training plateau, if you want to try something new, it's not a bad idea. It's not like a waste of your time. It's actually conducive to efficiency. And so that was really kind of what we found. And that's really what I expected, I think, because there's a lot of like hot flashy, like, oh, this is the best way to train or, effective reps this and whatnot. And I once used to buy into that and believe all that. But the more I'm kind of in like the training trenches and learning and reading and then doing the work and running the study, I realized like, okay, a lot of this is just hype. And when it comes down to real training, I mean, any real training, 1 to 2 RIR is going to grow, your muscle mass and elicit some kind of changes. You can manipulate rest according to basically how much time you have. But yeah, that was the gist of it.
The question, sorry, you
Yeah, yeah,
mentioned it was volume equated. Is
yeah,
that kind of sets times reps times load, so volume
yeah.
load?
Yeah,
Yeah.
volume mode, yeah.
Okay.
So everything was like if the trad, this is just from simple math right now, but if the trad group was doing like a 3x10 back squat, then the group was doing their mini set of, let's say, 5 or they probably like 10 to 12, and then their activation set of like 10 to 12, and their mini sets would be, let's say, like 5, 5, 5, 5. So it would equate 30 reps, just like the trad group, but they did it 3x10. The other group would do like activation, mini, 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 until it equated the same amount of reps.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people will say like, hey, like you said, effective reps, and what
Mm-hmm.
the short rest periods does is it keeps you close, like it keeps you
Right.
fatigued essentially. So you're already
Mm-hmm.
at like proximal to
Yeah.
failure for those initial reps. You have to do less
Yeah.
and potentially get the same kind of effect, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
do essentially more sets. Like
Yeah.
one cluster close to failure set doesn't count as a straight set
Right.
close to failure,
Right.
and that's why people are like, you can't say like those are the only effective reps because clearly these other ones are doing something. But
Totally.
what you can say is what you kind of said there was like same work, less time, less time, same gains. I was going to say more
Yeah.
gains.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's exactly what we found. And I would be really interested to see if Okay, I would be really interested. My original idea was not equating the volume because I really wanted to see, like, can you achieve more just simply doing Myo-Reps kind of irrespective of volume? But then you fall into, like, it gets sticky because then, like, what if one group ends up doing more volume, um, and they do end up seeing more hypertrophy, more strength gains? Well, then is it really the actual training, or is it just the fact that they did more volume? And so my advisor was like, first time around, definitely equate the volume just for standardization purposes. But I would be really interested to equate the time next time and see the difference in just like, you have 1 hour to complete this work, and see the difference in how much work they can complete within the hour. And I'm going to assume that Myo-Reps would, like, you would get more volume in within the hour. Would that lead to more gains? And would that be the Myo-Reps doing or just the more volume doing, right? So I don't think you'd ever really find out. I think that'd be a hard question to answer, but it would be really interesting to see. And is that even like feasible? Like, are you just going to be gassed? Like, can you even do an hour of Myo-Reps? Like, that sounds kind of crazy. And can you recover from that and have a successful 8 weeks of training? I don't know.
Yeah, that
So
would be super interesting because yeah,
yeah,
Myoreps has potentially some practical limitations for
yeah,
like it's quite tricky on compound lifts and
yeah,
bits and pieces like that. But yeah, you said I think 1/3 less time. I have here standard
yeah,
sets was like 80 minutes, whereas Myoreps
yeah,
was like 50 minutes.
yeah.
So like that's a lot
Huge
of
difference.
saved time and potential time to put towards things. So like you said, at least as like a variation, break
Mhm.
plateaus, or get in more work in less time, or
Yeah,
kind of do your work in less time. It's certainly a like a valuable kind of technique to use. Did you get
yeah,
any additional feedback that was like non-objective? Like, how did participants? Did you ask
yeah,
them any questions like, "How did
yeah.
you
We
enjoy
did
it? Like, what was your
the
experience?"
Yeah, we did the I think it's the SSRI. And it was basically something stress recovery index. And we actually found, I mean, small cohort. So I actually don't know how much I trust the results of the psychological portion, but we actually found that psychologically, the people doing Myo-Reps were able to recover better. Again, totally subjective reporting. So I don't know truly. I wish I could have taken some kind of biomarkers to know, like, are they actually recovering better? Because that's hard to believe. I actually presented this data at the ISSN earlier this year, all about just like my reps in my study. And somebody at the end of a presentation asked that same question, like, do you think something about psychological recovery or blah, blah, blah? And I said, like, yeah, actually, our Myo-Rep group showed better recovery, again, subjective reporting. And they kind of gave me a look like, okay. I was like, I know it doesn't make sense. I know it doesn't make sense. But when I wrote like the discussion up, I think that it I would say, again, small, small, small cohort. And I would just say that due to just spending less time in the gym, maybe allowed them to spend more time actually recovering, sleeping, resting, just the mental load of knowing they didn't have to spend an hour and a
Yeah.
half in the gym. Maybe that was reflected in like their questionnaire response because they were filling out the questionnaire before every session. And that's also how I tracked adherence. Like, at what time are you filling it out? Are you filling it out every day that you're supposed to be training? Um, and that's kind of my interpretation of those results. I think it would be way more valuable to get physiological measurements, like some kind of biomarker, to know if they're actually recovering better or more. But yeah, surprisingly, that's what we found.
That's really interesting
Yeah,
because similar, a study you probably saw came out was antagonist supersets and how that can be really
yeah,
time saving
yeah.
compared to just like doing one exercise then the other. You can kind of, whilst one muscle's resting, you can be training the other one that's not involved with that other exercise. So you can condense your workouts nicely. And that's something I've been doing. And just thinking like, I don't have a time limitation, but I know like my sessions take like 2 hours. I spend a lot of time in the gym,
Yeah, yeah,
even
yeah.
doing some of these protocols. So you'll
Yeah.
probably be like 2.5, 3. That starts just like you said, you get more time doing other
Yeah.
things, more time recovering. So I could like, I love that bigger picture because obviously science
Mhm.
is obviously just looking at one acute kind of a very particular thing, and you
Yeah.
can't necessarily like extrapolate that to everything else. So yeah, some really interesting bits and pieces there. I think you mentioned it's not published, right? So people can't
It's
try
not
and like,
published yet. Yeah. It's
yeah,
not published yet, because of giant dropout rate. We just have had a lot of trouble getting it published because people are like, this is too small. And I'm like, I know, but
Sure.
it's kind of like preliminary pilot data. So the paper just needs to find its appropriate home. And I want to make it well known that this isn't like groundbreaking science. This is just like a passion project, and it wasn't, a super large cohort. It wasn't longitudinal. There was no like direct hypertrophy measurement. So can't die by these results, but I think it's a good starting place and it can really spark a lot of ideas. And if anything, the psychological component was really interesting. Um, and at least I know Dr. D'Souza out of Tampa is working on publishing a Myo-Rep paper as well. And there's
Cool.
nothing out on Myo-Reps. So at least it makes it a like evidence-based approach so that if a strength coach or bodybuilding coach wanted to use it, they have something to fall back on. Like, hey, this might not be the strongest data, but there is data. People have done it and it's safe. It's backed by some evidence. And at the minimum, the reports are, hey, it's going to save you time. So we've got some like evidence. So that's really the goal is just put some evidence out there on it, and maybe other people will have more time, resources, and the ability to do a giant training study.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Maybe Borge will
I
put some
know.
funding into something. I
I
wonder.
know, please.
He
Yeah.
definitely has some incentives there, so that'd be really, really
Yeah.
cool. And
No,
I
totally.
mean, people forget, and I do often. Exercise science is still such a new field, especially
Yeah.
like specifically hypertrophy training, everything like
Yeah.
that. And it's not hugely funded because I mean, it's not like it's. I mean, like there's health and longevity benefits, but like
Right.
looking at the Myoreps protocol, it's like how can I sell this like
Yeah.
to the places? But
Totally.
yeah, amazing, very interesting stuff, and I really appreciate your time, Antonella. I think this has been
Yeah.
a really interesting chat. If people want to keep up to date with everything that you've got going on, have you got anything you want to share with the listeners, or where should they be heading?
I'm pretty active on Instagram. I post a lot on Instagram. I don't really have an X Twitter. I have one, but I don't use it, and I should use it because there's so much cool research on there and whatnot, but I don't use that. I don't really use anything else besides Instagram. I'm sparsely
Not
on
on the
LinkedIn.
threads.
Not on the threads. I want to be like, I have it linked to my Instagram just to read other people's stuff, but I've never posted. So yeah, I basically post everything on Instagram, and that's probably the best way to keep up with me.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's too much TikTok. I'm
It's too
on the
much.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't do it. I don't have the mental bandwidth for it.
It keeps it
It's a
easier for
lot.
people. So I'll make sure
Yeah,
your
yeah.
Instagram's linked in the description and they
Thanks.
can
Yeah.
go check out all your stuff. And
Mhm.
yeah, so thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for
Yes.
listening. We'll catch you in the next one.